All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So we have interesting developments here. So what we do know are the Pittsburgh Steelers plan on bringing in quarterback competition for Kenny Pickett, right? Mitch Trubisky a couple of days ago was released. You have Mason Rudolph, who won 3 straight football games, got this Pittsburgh Steelers team back into the playoffs. And they have a first-round draft pick. It's a little bit on the later side, but we just saw that the Steeler odds of acquiring Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson have gone all the way from plus 1,400 to minus 110, making them the new favorites to land veteran quarterback Russell Wilson via DK Sportsbook. Now, like I said, we know the Steelers are in the market for a quarterback, and the Broncos are expected to move on from Russell Wilson this offseason. Now, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. To be quite honest with you, I would rather have Justin Fields. I would actually rather have a rookie quarterback, but the more that I marinate on this, I actually don't hate the idea of the Steelers acquiring Russell Wilson. So you have to keep in mind, football's clearly a business. Personally, I would rather Pittsburgh go all in for a quarterback that's going to really move the needle. I think Kenny Pickett can play. I definitely think Mason Rudolph can play. But Russell Wilson had a very interesting season. The Denver Broncos in general had a very interesting season. Their defense in the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season was not helping them out. They were 2-5, and they rattled off 5 straight victories against Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo, Minnesota, Cleveland. They took down in the middle of the season some really good playoff football teams. And Russell Wilson was a big reason of that. So that's what we're going to be talking about in tonight's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Steelers fans, we're posting probably 2 or 3 Steelers videos right now. That number is going to be bumped up once we get closer to the draft day. So Steelers fans, if we're trying to get this video to 250 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So, Russ is interesting, very interesting. I don't think he particularly personality-wise fits Sean Payton. All right? I really don't. Now, before we actually get into Russell Wilson, Steelers insider Mark Kaboly says on 937 The Fan that the Steelers will likely make a contract offer to Mason Rudolph in the next couple of weeks. Now, this is a little bit conflicting because we heard that Mason Rudolph would like a change of scenery 3 or 4 days ago. I personally think that's more so from his agent, just trying to make sure that Mason Rudolph gets the bag. And Mason Rudolph would be a great backup quarterback. As we saw in the last month of the season, he's a borderline starting quarterback in this league. I personally, Russell Wilson doesn't change much to me than Mason Rudolph does. One thing that Russ actually did a phenomenal job of this season, and it's something that Kenny Pickett does very well, and it's something that Mason Rudolph also did very well. It's just lack of turnovers. Russell Wilson on the season threw for over 3,000 yards. He had a great completion percentage, 66.4. He was uber efficient, but he had 26 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. Only 8 interceptions. So we saw more so of your vintage Russ because keep in mind, the year before that, he was 4-11, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but he keeps it clean. And that's where the Justin Fields issue comes in, along with the contract. So Justin Fields, if the Steelers were to actually, make a 2nd-round draft pick or a 3rd and a 5th-round pick for Justin Fields, there's 2 issues with that if we want to take the negative route, or not negative route, but, just kind of, meat and potatoes route. First things first, Justin Fields turns the ball over quite a bit. He did have a career low in interceptions this season with 9, but fumbles have been an issue for Justin Fields his entire 3-year NFL tenure, right? He pretty much kind of fumbles one time every single football game. And especially when we look into, because the Steelers have one of the best defenses in the National Football League, once we get into playoff conversations, that's where the big if question mark comes in with Justin Fields. I don't have that question mark with Russell Wilson because he's going to keep it clean. But the other issue with Justin Fields' trade is he's entering the 4th year of his contract and he's making, a little over $20 million. So if you're actually going to make a move and you're going to give up valuable draft capital, you do need to pick up most likely his 5th year option. So you would want 2 years of Justin Fields. And that's not like an issue to me because I think fortune favors the bold. But Pittsburgh going after Russell Wilson really wouldn't shock me. Like we kind of mentioned earlier on in the video, I personally would think Russ stays with Denver, even though, like I said, I don't think he's a personality fit with Sean Payton, and I would imagine Sean probably wants to move on from him. Uh, but it's just something to keep in mind. Russ is a vet, and the Pittsburgh Steelers team in general is a little bit more on the older side, more of the veteran savvy side. I don't hate it. Um, it's just more of a personal biases, right? Like I think offense is a statement. I want to rain down fire on my opponents. I think offense becomes your defense, but it doesn't really seem like Pittsburgh would, realistically acquire in the draft, trade up for a guy like Bo Nix or Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy and like go all in on a quarterback, just kind of given the state of the defense. Russell Wilson, however, at this point in his career, at this age of his career, he's 35 years old. He's more of like a 2 or 3 big time plays a game. And that would be a step up from Kenny Pickett. I think the jury would still be out on Mason Rudolph. We certainly saw some big time plays with him and specifically George Pickens. But I do like the idea of getting Russ in here. He would keep the offense clean. As far as turnovers go, he'd have a high completion percentage, and he'd have guys like George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. I would assume, some type of rookie wide receiver, some type of wide receiver 3 instead of Allen Robinson or even Calvin Austin. Unfortunately, I think would come in as well. And then you've got Pat Freiermuth and Darnell. Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson does get me going. That does get me going a little bit. But like I said, 1, 2, max 3 big time plays from Russell Wilson a game at this point in his career. But like I said, that's a step up from Kenny Pickett. And it, once I really, now that I kind of start to voice this out, it does seem very, difficult to imagine Pittsburgh goes all in on a rookie QB at this point in their franchise, right? I think that would be more of a move if they were to move on from Mike Tomlin and kind of retool the whole team in general, specifically the defense. So Russ on the Steelers, I think the sports books would agree, but Russ on the Steelers does get me intrigued more than Justin Fields now that I think about it. Because when I think push comes to shove, because Pittsburgh Steelers, even with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, a fired Matt Canada, and you bring in a new offense coordinator, Arthur Smith, and you got this 2-headed monster at the running back position, I actually really don't hate it. And it wouldn't shock me. So Steelers fans, let me know what you guys are thinking. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. Have a great rest of your weekend. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers down below. Peace.